And welcome to the Software Entrepreneur Show on this late setting. Normally we run out in the dinner time and we'll be joining you for a bit of lunch, but today we decided to tune in so you can have something to take away as you come towards the end of your working day. I know if you're out in Australia, it'll be incredibly late. And if you're in the US, it'll be nice and early. And it's a bit of a change. You don't have to wake up as early as you normally do to tune in. But today, got an amazing guest joining us. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, to get someone in the retail sector who's really looking and got that experience and knowledge to be able to build upon this self-aware entrepreneur narrative in the retail space, because there isn't really a sector that is as dynamic, as evolving, but has had a significant amount of challenges over the past 10 years. Because there's a lot of sector now saying, COVID's hit us really hard. Actually, retail has been navigating challenges probably for the past 10 to 15 years. Has been having to evolve dynamically, be incredibly agile, and really start to become something different and really break that status quo. So joining me today is the wonderful Warren Richmond. Warren has spent 20 years. He's established the UK's leading field marketing agency, one of the best companies to work for in the Times 100. And not only has he done that, but he's now decided to take his knowledge, his time on the boards, seeing that top level overview and bringing it down into the shop, down into the shopping centres and down into the places where people enjoy these retail experiences. So he's looking to actually make retail immersive, actually bring not just this principle of buying a product, but actually wrapping it in a service, embracing it in an experience and making it into something that actually becomes, connective. It magnetizes you. It makes you feel like you are the only person there, because that personalized aspect is massive as we look to make experiences that speak to people, their values, how they feel, the way that they live their lives, and really appreciate that. So ultimately, Warren, he has a wealth of experience, but also he's got a deep understanding of well-being and employee experience as well. And that's why I wanted to get him on the show, because he's been on an entrepreneurial journey. He's learned an awful lot. He's had some challenges, and now he's bringing that to make retail special, to make retail come back to life in a way that literally a retail experience is a live experience. And that is something that speaks pretty deeply to me. So Warren, thank you for coming on the show today.
Not a problem, Lee. I think what an intro. Blimey, I've got to live up to that. What great words.
Well, I think, Warren, you've already lived up to that over the past 20 years, and now it's just like, what else are you gonna achieve? But can you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to over the past year?
Yeah, well, it's what a crazy year, especially being in the retail environment. But we have been busily working away, trying to navigate our way through new retail for a new world. And I think business is in a really exciting place right now in terms of just, we are in this new world. We've certainly come out of the pandemic, and there's a new sense and a new essence in what we can all do going forward. So yeah, for us, we've been building Situ Live. Our first venue goes live in Westfield in the UK, in White City. And exactly as you said, the aim is, how do we make retail an immersive, very engaging, more emotional space rather than a place you buy stuff? Because we all buy stuff online. That's where the trade happens. That's where, commodity products happen. So how do we absolutely bring it to life? And yeah, in the past year, we've been working out not just how to do that and twists and turns of making that happen, but building and bringing to life the best brands, bringing them together to join us on the journey. So we've got lots to talk about, but some great brands joining us in terms of how we're going to be doing that in Westfield in the UK here.
Yeah, so it's obviously going to be an incredibly exciting project and really kind of breaking those barriers of what's possible for a retail experience. But like we've spoken about previously, Warren, you actually started out supplementing your university journey in retail and picked up so many skills along that way that we almost said, I learned more from my retail job than I did from my university course.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that kind of journey and obviously how you've utilised all that stuff you've picked up in-field marketing to actually start to see some of these threads you've been able to pull as you created Situ?
Well, actually, Lee, I'll go one step earlier, if that's all right. Indulge me for a second, if that's all right, mate. I mean, I didn't know my dad growing up, and I'm sharing that, and actually earning money to live was an important part of growing up for me and my mum. So actually, maybe it's a typical entrepreneur's journey, I don't know, but when you're faced with some kind of adversity like that, you kind of just really feel the need to step up to the plate. And I think then it starts to build your DNA. So from a young age, I'm out there trying to make ends meet. So that was pretty exciting. When I did my degree, I got a job working for Epson, the computer company, if you know Epson. And we printers and scanners, Lee, and scanners. Now, scanners were just launching. That's how old I am, I'm afraid. Scanners were just launching when I was in retail in PC World Guildford, of all places. And actually it started there, I think, really, because scanners were just a plastic box and nobody really knew how they worked. So I just plugged it in and got people to bring in their old photos and said, bring them in and I'll bring them to life for you. And it was really heartwarming because people would bring in their old photos and you'd blow them up, you'd print them in A4, and actually you'd make an experience. And of course, people then went off to buy scanners and said, look what I can do. So actually that immersive kind of experiential use of that tool was there. And I, as I say, I learned more about people and about engaging with people, and I learned more skills there than maybe my design degree, which was good. I enjoyed it. I also sold a lot of Epson printers to the university campus, so I did come out of uni with the cash, which is handy. But I think those kind of projects that you can get involved in are really exciting. And then thereon, my story, Epson offered me a full-time job, which was great. I went to kind of lead some of the field team at Epson. So it felt like quite a prestigious role until I found out I was the only person who went for the role. So obviously I was the only candidate. But anyway, never mind. We'll overlook that. I did the role. I ran the team, and at a very early age, I think it was about 24. I just felt that the agencies that provided staff for what we did, I just didn't feel they looked after their people enough. So I decided to quit Epson and set up my own agency. And it's still in existence today. It's run by someone else. I still own it and chair it. But that has been quite a journey over the past 17 years. And, it's had its twists and turns, Lee. It's had its twists and turns. Talk about self-awareness. It really it's been an interesting journey.
No doubt, Warren. But you know what, at 24, and that takes a certain element of awareness at that point, because so many of us are still chasing this kind of, this life puzzle that we've been told, and we're supposed to progress through the ranks and climb career ladders. And you took a pretty brave and courageous step then to say, look, I don't feel that this has been done the way I believe it should be. And I've got a set of values here that I feel are being stamped on. And I'm going to go and build something that, actually lives to those values. So again, that does take a lot of bravery and courage. So what were the steps that you did to start to build that up?
I think it's an interesting point. I think when there's something burning inside you, I think I had that burning desire that I wanted to own something, and I suppose probably own, without getting too deep, own my own destiny. And I think there is an element of that doesn't leave you, does it? And I probably, talk about self-awareness, I probably didn't know that at the time. I can identify it with it now, but I at the time, I wanted to own my own destiny, but I probably didn't realize. I mean, the courageous steps were meeting people in the industry that could help me, that could advise me, that probably gave me the confidence. There's a couple of individuals that gave me that confidence and that boost. And then, probably I've always been a bit more of a risk taker and a bit brave. So, but I didn't have any dependents back then. I didn't have a wife or kids, and I think that makes a big difference. You can just risk it more. So I was kind of lucky in that respect. But talking about self-awareness, I wasn't particularly aware. I was very driven, I was very hungry, and I was probably naive, and that probably got me ahead more than if I wasn't, because you just go for it. And I think when you look back, you think, God, did I really do that? I've made a few interesting bold decisions in my life, and you think that was really stupid. I'm glad I did it, but blimey, had I really thought about it, maybe I shouldn't have. But they've worked. They haven't all worked, I have to say. You know, I've had a good few failures that have sent me into, you know, a darker place. But coming out of that, I think I learned more out of those than anything else. Actually, more out of those failures.
Yeah, and I think that, you know what, naive optimism is understated.
Absolutely.
Because the truth is, if we actually had the kind of the optimism all wrapped up and thought out, probably wouldn't have done half the things that we've learned. And a lot of the things that we decided to launch would never have come into fruition. But obviously, you've decided to embrace on that journey as well. A lot of the aspects around purpose and well-being. So through those challenges that you faced and those darker times that you've been in, how have they now come to be a massive part of what you do going forward?
Yeah, do you know, it's a great question. I think I'm probably a lot more aware of the word wellness, of my own wellness, actually, and therefore of other people's. So, you know, I used to be, you know, I've always wanted to provide great work. I have to say, I've always wanted to provide work that was meaningful for anyone and the people enjoyed. And I was always quite blunt, actually, to say, if you don't enjoy what you do, honestly, go and find something you enjoy. You got one chance on this earth. You got to bloody enjoy it. So I was always pretty adamant, but I was pretty focused and pretty relentless. I think as I've learned a lot, I've been more probably accepting of failure, actually, and of my own failures and others. And probably, I think for me, when you can allow yourself to fail, I think it's really great, and then you can learn from it. And I think I've learned a lot about that in the past 10 years, and helping and coaching people and others through that, I think, is really powerful and actually really exciting and actually really rewarding. Whereas years ago, I wouldn't, you know, when late 20s, early 30s, I just didn't want to fail. I couldn't fail. I wasn't allowed to fail. I didn't give myself permission to fail. So I think there's a lot about that, the kind of acceptance of it, and the fact that you got one life, just learn from it. So yeah, I think there's some massive lessons around that, and that's a whole webinar on its own, isn't it? Really, the word failure.
Oh yeah, but I love the fact that you embrace that and you started to become more vulnerable. And we all know that, you know, if you're going to build a business that's going to ultimately be successful, there's an awful lot of drive and determination behind that. And there's only so much reflection space when you're building that initial momentum. Because if you spend so much time looking at your indicators, you're going to crash your car, which is your vehicle, which is your business. But there becomes a point where you actually are able to start to look in those mirrors a bit. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, they really struggle to start to make that navigation from the continual moving forward and actually start to get the business on the rails so they can reflect a little bit on those challenges. And like you said, permission to fail. I mean, we live in a system, an educational system, a society that doesn't give us permission to fail. Failure is bad. Failure should be avoided. Failure brings up emotions that are negative and we're not allowed to express those. And especially if you're a driven individual, people expect that you're just going to keep driving no matter what happens. And sometimes, you just got to stop and change those tires, don't you?
Yeah, well, I love your analogy. I love your car analogy. I think, you know, the biggest thing as you're talking, I think that the biggest thing is probably about choices. I don't think you realize as you're growing a business or doing whatever you're doing in the business, I should say, I don't think you've realized you've got choices. As an example, growth is a choice. You don't have to grow your business. You can keep it niche and tight and great quality if you want to. And I suppose for me, and just the way I was, certainly, I didn't realize that was a choice. So every year I had to get bigger and better. And do you know what? Again, it's going to break at some point if you don't, as you say, stop and change your tires or just look in the rearview mirror. So I think having those choices, the permission to fail and having choices of whether you should grow or not, those kind of things you should be aware of. And unless somebody allows you to make those choices, you just kind of go on this mission that you think is the right one, if you see what I mean. So yeah, I think there's some very interesting lessons as you go through this stuff, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, and I also like the idea that you're traveling in your vehicle and you've built that to, build the empire, so to speak. And this is kind of propagated for everywhere that growth should be the target. I mean, we get the figures, it's all about GDP. Got to grow, right? Everything's got to be growing. Oh, the economy's not grown. Bad news. And what it does do is, like you said earlier, having those people who early in your career were, mentors, were coaches, give you the time. That actually sometimes is like another car pulling up to you on the side of the motorway and telling you, right, slow down a bit. We're going to have a bit of a chat here. Just catch up. Just make sure you're on the right course. Is your GPS, taking you into this congestion in front of you? And it's really starting to actually look and realize there's a lot of different aspects, but especially when you're on that growth journey, you might not necessarily have to scale as much as you believe you do. And like you said, in business, making decisions at speed is important, because if you just sit there and expect things to be decided for you, you're never going to be in control of that wheel, and you're not going to be in control of your business. But building that self-awareness over time allows you to make those decisions at speed, but actually the decisions are, something that you've been able to control. You're aware of the choices that you have. There's numerous different opportunities and options to get to a place. And it also allows you to define where you want to go more clearly, because interestingly, as human beings, we get into that position, we get quite strategic, we create an amazing business plan, we know where the balance sheet's at. Sometimes we actually forget where our own people strategy for us is, where our own personal balance sheet is, and our own profit and loss as we look to try and live a meaningful life. So, I mean, is that something that you started to do as well as you?
I love again some of the analogies, and I think the biggest thing with situ, and actually the number one score and the number one metric for us is our people score. Yeah. And of course, finances is always the counter to a lot of stuff. But and I'm going to pick up on your car analogy now, if you look at the dashboard and you look at the dashboard being your measures, the fuel gauge is your cash, of course. That is really what the cash is there for. It's to provide you fuel to keep going of where you're going. But if the people in the car aren't enjoying it, then what's the point of driving the car, quite frankly? And I think where to be fair, retail marketing and other businesses that I've set up have always focused on people and the people score, and it hasn't always gone well, and that's just the twists and turns of learning a lot of different things about business. But definitely at the heart of what we do is, in situ, we've got an opportunity to change the retail landscape. And if you're going to change the retail landscape, you've got to change some stuff. So one thing we can change is the education and well-being of people. Because we're changing the commercial model of retail, and we're not making it about sales, because that happens online. We're making it about experience. And the one thing that makes experience in retail is people. It's going in for a reason, and it's the people, it's the interaction of people. So number one high on our agenda is people. And actually the way we recruit the people is very different. The way we enculturate the people in terms of the culture that we want, the training, etc. That is the essence of what we've got to be about. And to finish off, Lee, on that rant, if we can get people into an environment where they can learn, then actually churn of those people is really important to us too, if they want to leave. Because when people come in for a first job for a year and then take those skills and go on to do other things, and hopefully things that are more purposeful to them, or stick with us forever, it's up to them. We can make great things happen. So I think there's a really interesting place for retail to help people learn, help people develop some really interesting transferable skills, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to just take a minute to focus on, as you look to this new way of retail, what skills that people are going to build are going to come to the fore and be most coveted, ultimately most cherished as we look towards a new model.
Well, great question. Very, very excited to answer that one, I have to say, because we've had a psychologist working with us for for us. So Graham is full time. He's worked with me for over a decade, and a lot of what we do with all of our teams is psychological development. So we use insights profiling, which is a color tool that starts to kind of help you understand your own personality. There's self-awareness training we look to do. So actually a lot of the, as they class them, the softer skills of, who are you, how do we help you become more self-aware, how you interact with others, how you see yourself clearly, I think they are the transferable things that we can give, which will be unique. There's lots of other skills, whether it's negotiation, customer service, product tech and spec. This is stuff you can learn if you're passionate about it and if you want to. There's lots of different courses to do lots of that great skills stuff. But yeah, I think the biggest change for us will be that that psychological side, which I think I've seen in a lot of businesses. They attempt it with good intention, but it's generally a course. You go on the course, you come back and go, right, back to my day job. Whereas it's got to be intertwined with the business, number one, and then it sticks, and then it becomes a part of life. So helping people to understand themselves is probably going to be the biggest thing that we can give as an organization, not even a place in retail, just as an organization. And I'd like to say that we've done that for many years in other businesses as well.
Yeah, and that's just exciting in itself. And obviously, my background as a psychologist, and I work with companies in a very similar way, and that embedding aspect of these skills and really starting to expand upon them, and they actually become part of the business framework. And that's something that's really important, because again, a day course, it raises a bit of awareness, but if it's not built in to that DNA, as you speak, and it's being able to actually people see and be championed and actually build little communities who foster these aspects further. But if there's one thing that I want to kind of highlight, Warren, how much is storytelling as a skill going to start to expand out in that new retail experience?
Yeah, I mean, massive. It's such a central part of our strategy and what we do, and whether it's just a normal human story, an everyday human story, or a bigger story about a product and what you can do with that product. But yeah, it is a big skill, and actually we've been looking at a different type of person to come in, and we have been looking at the arts, and we know what's happened to theatres over the pandemic. So having an opportunity to help individuals in that space is something we've been looking to do, because there's some natural talent there as well. So yeah, storytelling is a skill, and there's one individual that we've hired who is very good at it, and that has been their background. And so it seems a bit odd, we look like a retailer because we're in a retail landscape, but we're not a retailer, we're a venue, and we have storytelling skills being cascaded through our business. And what a great skill to have, to tell stories. We've been doing it for millennia. There's stories everywhere. So we've got to enhance that skill in a new world, rather than just transact, which I'm afraid to say a lot of the traditional retailers are still just transacting, and that is not what retail is there to do anymore. It's there to inspire and tell stories.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, because how I kind of play it in my little mind is that you're fusing things together. So you're fusing like this transaction into relationship and actually forming something together. You're transacting a retail space into an event space. And again, that fusion actually creates something that's dynamic, something that's new, something that's continually evolving, and really kind of magnetizes people towards it. Because as human beings, we love things that are novel. We love stories, things that connect us to someone else's journey. And that's what we're doing today. Ultimately, we're sharing two entrepreneurial journeys and breaching that story and bringing it together. But what I do want to know now, Warren, as we come towards the end of the show, is what would your advice be to other entrepreneurs who are looking to become more self-aware, to leaders who are looking to really expand their skill set, and people who are looking at retail thinking, that's a sector that interests me, it's something I want to know a bit more about. What are your real key takeaways for how things are going to move in the future?
Wow, two big questions. I think to head off number one, how do I put this really? Probably something along the lines of learn how to learn. Some people are natural learners. I'm not. So it took me a long time through my business to continuously learn. And I think linked to that, I think then learn the lessons and the understanding of things out of that. Because I think sometimes we think we've learned something, but maybe you've just heard it, or you think you've understood it. And I think when you link that to self-awareness, really deeply understand and learn things. And I think learning I found I've only found it probably in the past decade. I'm ashamed to say I've never been a good learner, and so I think the importance of really listening and understanding, and really learning from failures. So learning is kind of the key principle that I have learned. If that makes sense, sounds a bit cryptic, or maybe not even very wise, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and we live in a world full of knowledge. Absolutely, you can find out anything pretty quickly if you need to, but that deeper understanding, and then being able to apply that understanding to what you've been through and pull out those threads is, again, that's something that we don't get taught that at school. We have to almost experience life and start to become more teachable, and then start to be able to become more kind of, I suppose, listening. Because listening is a massive thing. When you're an entrepreneur, you are doing. How often do you stand and listen?
Stopping to think and standing to listen. I think, I love it. I love your sentiment there. That's really, really nice. I think in terms of things to look for the future, I'd be as bold to say I think we are entering into almost a new era, actually, a new business era. And I think it's about psychological development. And I think if you look at past revolutions, industrial revolution, etc., I think you've got a lot of stuff going on. I think the stuff's all taken care of. There's so much technology now that is coming to a natural place where it's just embedded. The new revolution that we're in is all about about our minds as humans and actually how we interact. So it's very, very apt what you're talking about today and the thread. So I think if there was, whatever you want to call it, pearl of wisdom or anything, I think the future that I see personally is all about human emotion and interaction. And I think that is a massive world that we haven't even scratched the surface on as a race yet. I think we're getting into a huge, exciting journey with that.
No, and I really agree. I mean, we have gone through this technological revolution in recent times, but this pandemic has shown us things can be digitized incredibly quickly, but the social importance of being able to communicate, be comprehended, be listened to, be heard, be appreciated is like currency that simply carries so much weight in a world full of data. Actually, people just want to be valued. People want to be listened to, and people want their emotions almost to kind of flow through them. And that is where self-awareness comes in, where you actually start to become more aware of yourself and are able to access that and really start to, almost understand who you are. You're going to be the biggest project of your life, not your business. You. Like, we're incredibly complex human beings. There is no way to structure us in a hierarchy. With so many interconnected bits, it's crazy to even start to think about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm so much in agreement that we're coming towards a place where it's all about the people. And again, we've seen over this past year, not being able to access things has caused a lot of people to just reflect and see communities have come together, helping the vulnerable. People actually starting to come together. And we do live in a world that's a little bit polarized, Warren, don't we? There is a little bit of polarity out there with things. But gradually, people start to be, start to see that actually we need people. People are everything beyond the product, beyond the technology. And that it's so great to kind of see that you're going to be bringing that forward into those retail spaces, making it not necessarily about the space, but about the people who come, the time they spend, the experience, the engagement, and ultimately how they feel when they're there, because that's what will bring people back. Because we all know products, great when you receive it, novelty wears off, suddenly it's just something you own. And if we can make retail way beyond that, and suddenly online shopping becomes just a little bit less attractive.
Love it. I love it. You can sell it better than me, Lee.
So Warren, where can people find more about Situ? And where can people find more, and what should they expect going forward from yourself and the business?
Well, we launch in September the 30th in Westfield. So come on down, clearly, around then. Situlive.com is also another place. So head on down. I don't know where you're based, Lee, but you're quite welcome to come on down on opening day.
I'm going to come on down, don't you worry.
Love it. Great. And yeah, I think we're socializing a lot about our journey. So do keep an eye out.
Yeah, so an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Warren. It's absolutely great to finally get you on and have a little bit of your time on this afternoon. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Elliot and Martin have dropped some thanks in the comments, Warren, for your engaging insight there. But ultimately, once again, it's a pleasure to have you. We'll be back next week. And tune into the Self-Aware Entrepreneur Show. We do bring guests who are going to give you something different, not just your typical entrepreneur babble, but actually some deep insight, some journey, some ideas, and more than anything, something to take away and think about. So again, thank you, Warren, for joining us.
Thanks, Lee.
And go and check out Situ at the Westfield. And ultimately, I'm sure it'll be an experience you won't forget.